The day I learned my stepdad wasn't who he seemed. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Victor's breath smells like expensive mint and panic when he corners me in the cold garage, a place that always feels like a showroom more than a home. "Jordan," he whispers, voice thin as cellophane, "I need your help, and then you need to disappear." I'm 28, grease under my nails from the shop, and I make rent by fixing other people's engines while he polishes his image like chrome. My mother, Elena, pretends not to hear from the kitchen where the kettle is just starting to sigh. I'm the one who can pull a bent frame back into alignment, who knows how to listen to a knocking engine and hear the truth. What I stand to lose is small compared to Victor's marble foyer, but it's mine. And now he's asking for it. Help with what? I ask, though my gut already knows the metal is warped. He rubs his temple, eyes skittering toward the door, like the house might be wired against him. "A simple transfer," he says. "A favor. Keep our family safe." Family, said like a password. He has always liked me best when I'm useful and quiet. I glance past him at the trophy wall, his framed charity galas, the photos where he looks like a man who donates more than he devours. He's already opened a folder on his phone, screenshots of bank balances that look healthy at the top and hollow by the line items. "This is going to go public if you don't help," he hisses. The way he says public makes my skin pebble. My job is small to him, but it taught me to respect heat, pressure, and failure points. Things crack where they've been bowed too long. If I help Victor, I become a bolt torqued past spec. If I don't, the whole frame might shear for everyone I love. I think about the last time he called me Hans, not son. The kettle whistles. I feel a funeral coming, and I don't know whose yet. "Tell me everything," I say, and he smiles like he's already purchased it. He leans in and says 8 words that make the house feel suddenly uninsurable. I realize he wants me gone before the fire starts. Victor arrived when I was 12, the kind of man who could turn the light toward himself just by opening a door. He brought my mother fresh lilies and brought me rules. "Stand straight, speak less, watch and learn," he'd say, tapping the table twice like a gavel. The first time I rebuilt a carburetor at 16, he called it a cute hobby and asked if I was applying to real schools. My mother, Elena, slid a plate of roast chicken toward me as if food could be an apology. He didn't yell. He edited. "A man like me doesn't get to be sentimental," he'd say, and file the edge off a tender moment until it lay flat and dull. If I came home with grease on my jeans, he'd bring up dry cleaning costs. If I skipped a party to study for an ASE exam, he'd quip to the guests that I was courting wrenches. The contempt was always wrapped in silk, so my protests sounded shrill next to his calm. Max, my younger brother by 3 years, learned to laugh when Victor laughed. The smart kid's survival tactic. The last fresh wound came 2 weeks ago, at a Sunday dinner where he'd arranged the seating like a chessboard. To Jordan, who heroically rescues mufflers in distress, he toasted, and everyone chuckled because the roast was good and the wine better. My mother caught my eye with that tight smile she wears when she is praying for a breeze to pass. "At least Jordan's honest work pays the bills," she said, and Victor's eyebrow flicked like a metronome set to disdain. After dessert, he squeezed my shoulder hard enough to bruise. "Ambition is a choice," he murmured. "You keep choosing small." That's the night I noticed a shadow under his charm, something like hunger. I thought it was ambition. I didn't yet know it was a different kind of appetite. The call started after midnight. Soft vibrates on the marble island that Victor pretended not to hear. Twice I came downstairs for water and found him staring at a spreadsheet, the kind with more tabs than a filing cabinet. The second time, he snapped the laptop closed and asked if my little shop needed a loan. "I'm fine," I said, and watched his face relax a degree too fast. The next morning, a pale envelope lay mis-delivered on our porch, addressed to Victor, but with my mother's maiden name in the return corner, like a smudge someone tried to wipe away. I slid it under a stack of magazines before anyone saw. Later, alone, I opened it in the garage. Aline noticed. Not on our house. On a storage unit I didn't know existed. Victor walked in, phone to his ear, and winked. "Corporate housekeeping," he mouthed, as if I were the help. He still swaggered at dinners, reciting donations and new partnerships, but the household staff rotated like tires with a slow leak. "He's different," my mother whispered once, folding tea towels into smaller and smaller squares. Men change. I wanted to believe the red flags were just party streamers in bad light. I kept telling myself he had enemies. Men like Victor collect enemies the way their shoes collect shine. Driving to work, I told myself to stay out of it. But when an engine knocks, you don't turn the radio up and pretend it's music. You find the loose piece before it rattles free and kills someone. That night, his phone buzzed, and I heard a stranger say, "The guarantee fails by Friday." Victor hosted a charity auction at the downtown hotel, the kind with uplighting that makes the rich look painted. He stationed me by the champagne like an accessory. "Smile," he said. "It's cheaper than a suit." Halfway through the speeches, he snagged the mic and told a story about a boy who fixes cars like lemonade stands, and the laughter hit me like a hailstorm. I grinned because pride is expensive in rooms like this. My mother's ring flashed as she clapped. Max looked at the floor. After, in the loading dock where the air smelled like wet cardboard, a man in a thrift store suit found me. "Jordan," he asked, "you live at 43 Bramble?" I nodded before remembering not to. He handed me a manila envelope, eyes apologetic. "For Mr. Duarte," he said, Victor's last name, and slid away like a messenger who knows the message carries teeth. Inside, a summons. A creditor with a name like a bank, but no branch I'd ever seen. I tucked it into my jacket and walked back into the ballroom as if nothing had shifted under my feet. At home, I left the envelope on Victor's desk and went to my tiny apartment above the garage. The walls are thin, and I could hear him below, pacing, then calling someone and saying, "It's handled. Tell them it's handled." The word handled repeated until it sounded like a broken belt slipping on a pulley. By morning, another envelope had joined the first, and the kitchen felt staged for a reveal I wasn't ready to film. That's when Victor told me, smiling, to pack and be gone by week's end. I moved fast because humiliation likes an audience. 2 duffel bags, my toolbox, the framed photo of me, Mom, and Max at the county fair before Victor taught us how to pose. My mother hovered on the landing like a ghost who couldn't choose a staircase. "Just for a while," she said, voice as thin as tissue. "Your stepfather says the house is under review." Max texted me a thumbs up, and then, a minute later, he's stressed, man. Don't provoke him. Aunt May, technically my mother's cousin, practically my lifeline, showed up in a dented Civic with a plastic bin of pantry items. "Men like him bank on silence," she said, pressing a jar of peanut butter into my hands. "Don't give him your hush." My apartment over the shop smells like hot metal and detergents. At night, the radiator ticks like a metronome for survival. I pick up extra shifts, ride the bus to save gas, and count tips from break jobs. Elena calls, then doesn't, then calls again. "Victor thinks you need space to mature," she says, words so careful they bruise. "Do you?" I ask, and she exhales a fog that never becomes an answer. Rent is due, and the landlord is kind until he isn't. I pawn a watch Victor gifted me, a monogrammed apology for some past belittlement, and feel lighter for it. Aunt May brings me soup. "Keep your head," she says. "Keep receipts." That night, I dream of bolts backing out of a chassis one by one until the frame sings. When I wake, there's a default notice in my email for a loan I never took. The email shows a loan application with my name spelled right and my birth date close enough to pass a lazy glance. The signature looks like mine at dusk after 3 cups of coffee. Attached, a blurry scan of a driver's license, my face pasted at a crooked angle. There's a contact number listed for employment verification, and it's my stepfather's office landline. I call the lender and sit through music that sounds like waiting rooms. When a human answers, I ask for the application date. "Last month," she says. "Approved same day by guarantor." The guarantor is a shell company with a name that rhymes with our street. I forward everything to a throwaway email and start a folder called Then. I go by the house to pick up mail and find Elena in the pantry, rearranging pasta like you can organize fear. "Do you have my social?" I ask lightly. She blinks. "Why?" I show her the email on my phone. Her knuckles go white around a jar of olives. "Victor handles our paperwork," she says. "He's deficient." I hear the front door and pocket the phone. Victor appears in a perfect sweater and says, "Jordan, this is neither the time nor the place." He escorts me out, palm hot on my back, and whispers, "Don't dig where you can't afford to bury." Back in my apartment, I empty my pockets and a second phone falls out, black, unremarkable, tucked into my jacket by a magician who wants applause. The second phone contains 2 contacts, office, and a number with no name. The messages are sparse, as if written in a foreign country where adjectives are illegal. Transfers, confirmations. A photo of a storage unit door, Unit C17, timestamped 3 Thursdays ago at 11:18 p.m. The night Victor claimed he was at a fundraiser. I visit the bank where our family keeps a polite checking account, and the teller's smile goes brittle when I ask about wire transfers. "We can't discuss Mr. Duarte's activity," she says, then, quietly. "But you can request your own records." My statements show small debits I don't recognize, subscription-sized cuts that add up like rust. At lunch, I meet Carla, Victor's ex-assistant, who now works at a dental office and chews her lip when nervous. "He made me buy SIM cards with cash," she says. "He said it was for client privacy." She shows me a photo of a ledger page she took before she quit. Initials, amounts, and arrows like a football coach's plan. The arrows all point toward 2 shells with beachy names. "He's good at being seen helping," Carla says. "He's better at hiding help he gives himself." I drive by the storage facility at dusk. Unit C17's door has a new padlock that looks old on purpose. A camera blinks red like an eye with grit in it. When I check the fundraiser's gallery online, Victor is in the photos, but the timestamps are wrong by hours. I bribe the night manager at the storage place with coffee and a story about a missing title. Inside C17 is not furniture or family heirlooms, but boxes of prepaid cards, unopened mail addressed to aliases that rhyme with ours, and a file marked medical. That folder makes my stomach drop. Insurance claims under Elena's social for treatments she never had. Durable medical equipment shipped to an address that doesn't exist. Benefits fraud, mapped with colored tabs like a science fair project. In another box, printouts of offshore account registrations, each a shell with a postcard name and a bright logo. What I don't find is the why. There are traces of someone else. Perfume on a scarf, a coffee mug with lipstick, a motel receipt signed with a heart. Affairs, maybe, but the money flows around them like a moat. The real risk sharpens. Our house, my mother's credit, Max's student loans, all cross-collateralized with signatures that look like ours after a long night. I sit on the concrete and press my palms to the cold floor until my heartbeat stops hunting. On my way out, I notice a clipboard by the door with a handwritten note. C17, deliver Thursday, 10 a.m. When Thursday comes, the delivery guy is Victor's driver wearing a courier's hat. I take photos, scan documents, and record a call with the bank that guaranteed my loan. Their hold music is the same as a debt collector's I recognize from the shop. Detective Ruiz, a customer who once paid me in cash and warnings, agrees to meet for coffee. I slide him a neat stack of pages. He doesn't touch them. "Chain of custody," he says. "Email them to this address, timestamped, and keep the originals somewhere safe." Aunt May clears a drawer in her kitchen and labels it screws. We put the files there, because even God respects a woman with labeled drawers. The moral dilemma hums under everything. Victor texts me at 2 a.m. "You've made your point. Come home." I type and delete 3 times, then send nothing. I draft a plan, a meeting at a lawyer's office under the pretense of discussing a family trust. Invite Elena and Max, invite Victor, obviously. Invite Ruiz, who will happen to be down the hall. Print statements with dates, amounts, and annotations a judge would respect. Before I sleep, I replay a memory of Victor teaching me to tie a tie, hands gentle for once. The memory asks me to protect the mask. My gut asks me to protect the people behind it. I choose to schedule the meeting for the day his mask likes most, Sunday dinner. Sunday arrives dressed like tradition. Elena sets the table with the blue plates, the ones from her first marriage she keeps for blessings. Victor pours wine with the reverence of a priest. "Jordan," he says, "let's have no theatrics tonight." Max nods like a bobblehead by habit. I keep my phone face down and wait for Ruiz's text confirming he's in the building next door. It buzzes once. I slide the napkin across my lap like I'm hiding a letter. Victor starts with compliments, which is how he holds a blade. "You've grown into a dependable young man," he says, gripping my shoulder. "Imagine what you could do with better guidance." Elena's eyes flick between us, a metronome of dread. Halfway through the roast, Victor leans in. I know you've been playing detective, he murmurs. That's dangerous. For you. For your mother. My throat goes dry. Tell me what you think you know, he says louder, making it a show. I almost fold. Aunt May texts me a single wrench emoji. I picture her label maker, the folder that says screws, the life she built with small steady fixes. I stand up and say, actually, I booked a room downtown for a family consultation. Victor's smile freezes like chocolate in a freezer. He says my full name like a verdict and tells me to sit down. We arrive at Carter & Bell, a glass-walled law firm that smells like money and lemon. I've reserved a conference room with a view of the city's spine of freeway. Just a quick chat about the trust, I tell the receptionist, and Victor gives me a look like he's already bought the building. Inside, I hand out color-coded packets. Blue for Elena, green for Max, red for Victor. This is insulting, Victor says, not opening his. Open it, I say. He does. The first page is a bank statement with a wire transfer to a shell named Sundial. The second is a benefits claim under Elena's social for a wheelchair she never received. The third is a screenshot of the storage unit ledger with his initials all over it like a rash. Carter himself steps in, gray suit precise as a scalpel. We were just discussing a protective order, he says mildly. Victor's face does a thing I've only seen once. When a belt's snapped under tension, it whips and then hangs slack. He reaches for Elena's hand. These are misunderstandings, he says. Jordan is confused. Carter presses a button and a screen lowers, displaying the timeline I built. Dates marching like soldiers. Ruiz texts me. In lobby. Not if you want me. I look at Elena, who is reading the word wheelchair like it's spelled with knives. Victor flips the packet and finally shows his teeth. Victor lunges for narrative like it's a lifeboat. This was to protect us, he says, voice silky. The shells are legal. Everyone does it. The claims were temporary placeholders. I made us money. Carter clicks the remote and plays a recording. Victor coaching someone on the phone to rekey the applications and route the payout to the auxiliary account. The room goes very quiet. Elena's hand finds her neck and stays there, like she's holding her head on. Max mutters, tell me he's lying, but it's not a question. Why? I ask finally. Victor's eyes flick to the window. Because I could, he says, which is the most honest thing I've ever heard him say. The motive unspools. Ego, fear of aging out of relevance, envy of any applause not aimed at him. You owe me, he adds, turning to Elena. I built this life. Ruiz enters now, badge discreet but sun-bright to me, and places a card on the table. Victor goes cold. You brought police to a family meeting? He spits. You did, I say, and slide a final page across the table. The loan with my forged signature, the guarantor tied to Sundial, the IP address from his office. The mask drops like a helmet clattering. Victor points at me and tells my mother I'm destroying everything he saved. The next 48 hours move like bad weather. Carter files to freeze certain accounts. Elena moves into Aunt May's guest room with one suitcase and a box of photos. Max sleeps on my couch and stares at the ceiling as if the truth might be projected there. At the shop, a man waits by my bay door and asks if I like my kneecaps where they are. Tell Victor to call off dogs he can't feed. I say, hands steady over a brake job that can't afford my trembling. Ruiz advises I vary my route home. I install extra locks and put a baseball bat by the bed like an old ritual. Family splits in the group chat. Half think I'm an ingrate. Half ask for copies of the packet. At night, I hear my mother crying through Aunt May's thin walls, and the sound she makes is the sound of a belt failing its speed. My boss gives me a warning for distracted work after I miss a torque spec and a customer returns angry. Fix it, he says, or you're out. I fix it. I fix everything I can reach. Victor's attorney sends a letter calling my evidence fabricated and threatening a suit. Carter replies with a list of exhibits and a time he's free to argue. Then someone jimmies my apartment door while I'm sleeping and leaves it open 2 inches. I don't move back home. Home is a place where truth is furniture, not decor. Elena starts therapy. I drive her, wait in the parking lot, and learn the names of clouds. Max gets a part-time job and returns a credit card Victor gave him, cut into 4 neat pieces. We set boundaries like traffic cones. Help is not silence, Aunt May says, tea steeping dark beside a plate of lemon cookies. I put conditions in writing. I will help Elena with her credit report and filings, I will not deliver messages to Victor. I will not discuss the case except with counsel. It feels like building a roll cage around a heart. We make a safety plan, check-ins, code words, a screenshot folder that auto-uploads to the cloud. Ruiz calls to say the investigation is ongoing. In that precise way, that means slow. I go back to the storage unit with a uniformed officer and watch them catalog the boxes. I sleep more. Once I dream of a highway at night, lane markers sliding past like measured forgiveness. At the shop, I passed the brake certification test I failed once from nerves. The boss nods. Steadier, he says. I see Victor at a distance outside the courthouse, smaller without lighting. He smiles like a man who still believes applause is a renewable resource. The day I learned my stepdad wasn't who he seemed was not one day. It was 100 small days strung together, each with its own thin cut. He didn't become a villain overnight, and I didn't become brave in a montage. I became someone who keeps receipts and boundaries and a clean socket set. I learned that love without truth is just management. I learned that some men call disappearance protection when they mean obstruction. My job, small, honest, taught me to respect torque and tolerances. Tighten until snug, then 1/4 turn. People are like that. Push beyond their spec, and you'll shear something you can't replace. For anyone listening, document everything. Label dates, times, amounts. Save the text even if it stings. Ask for help before you think you deserve it. Your safety is more important than someone else's reputation. Choose the family that chooses you back. The hopeful image I keep is Elena laughing with Aunt May as they overwater a plant, Max returning from work smelling like coffee and effort, and me washing my hands at the sink until the grease becomes proof that I am building, not hiding. The practical takeaway is simple. If a house asks you to disappear, make yourself seen. Because secrets hate light, and ours are finally blinking in daylight together.